Next on Current News, a powerful message from Pope Francis to the bishops of the United States. At their spiritual retreat over the clerical sex abuse crisis, Francis has important advice for them. A crackdown against a Christmas charity. A Brooklyn Catholic was raising money to fight children's cancer when the cops showed up. President Trump has dragged the Vatican into the middle of his fight over a border wall, and he's pointing to another wall that's centuries old. Plus, today is the first day of a big power shift on Capitol Hill. The news starts right now. Tonight, an important message from Pope Francis to America's bishops about the sexual abuse crisis. Hi, I'm Michelle Powers. Liz Faultless is off. The Holy Father is delivering advice to bishops who are now secluded in prayerful retreat about the scandals. National correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, Christopher White, breaks down what Francis is saying.
In a landmark 8-page letter to U.S. bishops, Pope Francis told the religious leaders to stop pointing fingers and to lead on abuse through collegial spiritual fatherhood. The letter was given to the bishops at the start of yesterday's unprecedented week-long retreat at Chicago's Mundelein Seminary, where the Pope sharply criticized the loss of credibility of the U.S. hierarchy over both sexual abuse and its cover-up. The letter strikes a different tone from when Pope Francis spoke to the U.S. bishops in person over 3 years ago during his 2015 visit to the U.S.
As I look out with affection at you, their pastors, I would like to embrace all the local churches over which you exercise loving responsibility.
In the wake of this summer's devastating revelations of former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, who for decades assaulted seminarians, and at least in one case a minor, and the release of an August Pennsylvania grand jury report chronicling 7 decades of abuse of more than 1,000 individuals, the leadership of the U.S. Church has struggled to regain its footing.
Thank you so much for receiving us today.
During a September meeting with a delegation from the U.S. bishops at the Vatican, Francis suggested the retreat as the necessary first step to healing and restoring trust. In his letter, the Pope specifically warned against having a business mindset where bishops view themselves as mere administrators. Writing, the loss of credibility cannot be regained by issuing stern decrees or simply creating new committees or improving flowcharts as if we were in charge of a Department of Human Resources. Francis went on to heed pastors must be willing to listen and learn from their mistakes and not to act defensively as a necessary step for reconciliation, both among one another and with the larger flock. Over the next 6 days, the U.S. bishops will hear meditations from the Pope's preacher to the papal household, Father Enero Cantalamessa. The retreat, which is largely being held in silence, will conclude next Tuesday.
Christopher joins us now. The Pope's letter is strong in condemning sexual abuse and its cover-up, Chris. But what specifics does the Pope offer about what comes next?
Well, the Pope in this letter says in order to address the sexual abuse crisis, you really have to have a unified body of bishops. So first, he wants sort of a spiritual purging of their own lives and their own ministries so that they can better care for their flock. So I think that what comes next is it's a personal reflection.
But he also speaks about the issue of unity as well, that it goes among the bishops, it goes beyond the issue of sex abuse. What does he mean by that, about unity?
Yeah, the Pope has some really impassioned passages in this letter where he talks about, cultural and social sort of fabrics of our society are unraveling. And if the bishops want to have any moral credibility in the public square, they've got to get their own house in order, not just on sex abuse, but collectively.
All right, Chris, thank you so much. Bishop DiMarzio is applauding the Pope's letter as an expression of his fraternal support for the bishops during their retreat. He says, quote, Pope Francis recognizes the loss of credibility that the Church has suffered because of the sexual abuse crisis and encourages us not only to find practical ways of restoring credibility, but also by doing this through a renewal of our spiritual lives. The bishop adds, quote, the letter of Pope Francis is a letter that all members of the Church should study. The letter in English and Spanish is available at usccb.org/Francis. Over the past 4 months, dioceses across the U.S. have released names of more than 1,000 priests and others accused of sexually abusing children in cases that span decades. In the latest instance, the Diocese of Monterey is publishing 30 names involved in abuse allegations that date back to the 1950s. Parishioners are saying the release is a positive move.
It's not more what they did to them, it's the healing process that they can move on, that justice is being done.
The diocese says there have been no credible allegations of sexual misconduct there since 2009. The Pope's top aide, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, is saying tonight the church must do, quote, even the impossible to beat back the abuse crisis. He's the Vatican Secretary of State, and the church has made progress against the scandal, but hasn't always achieved perfect results. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops established what is known as the Dallas Charter in 2002 to combat and prevent sexual abuse. Some of the measures include creating the Office of Victim Assistance to help individuals who come forward with allegations of abuse. The office provides counseling, referrals for therapy, and other important resources. Every employee of the Diocese of Brooklyn, including students, undergoes mandatory training designed to spot the signs of abuse and how to stop it. Bishop DiMarzio meets with survivors and listens to them carefully. One result of these talks is the annual Mass of Hope and Healing in the diocese. The diocese also has a toll-free and confidential sexual abuse reporting line. That number is 888-634-4499. And for more information, go to the Diocese of Brooklyn's website, dioceseofbrooklyn.org, and click on Protecting Our Children. A Catholic homeowner in Dyker Heights is fighting the city after he says the health department stole his holiday spirit and a good deed to help cancer patients. Currents News' Tim Harfman is in the neighborhood with the story. Tim.
Michelle, this area is known for its elaborate Christmas decorations, drawing thousands of visitors every year. But one resident received some unexpected visitors, and it landed his hot chocolate stand in hot water.
It was scary, actually. The way they came up was like they were almost like a SWAT team.
Greg Morgieri is referring to this. A $4,000 fine for operating this food stand outside his home last month. 6
police officers and 3 health inspectors came onto my property and basically shut me down.
It was part of his Christmas display. The Dyker Heights neighborhood is renowned for its decorations, drawing thousands of visitors each year. This was the 4th year Morgieri opened the stand in his driveway. He says he never had a problem before and previously donated proceeds to Toys for Tots. But after losing his stepfather to cancer last year, the Brooklyn businessman pledged $2,500 to the charity Cookies for Kids Cancer.
Owning a bakery, it was kind of easy to chime into the bakery kind of cookies idea. And this was a great idea when it was hatched, and it got to not such a good idea when we opened.
Morgieri applied for this certificate from the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance, but the city's Department of Health claims that wasn't enough. Releasing a statement reading in part, Mr. Morgieri had a New York State Certificate of Taxing Authority, which allows a holder to collect sales tax, but not to prepare, store, hold, and serve food to the public. A parishioner of St. Ephraim Church, Morgieri said he understands the real reason for the season, but raising money during Christmas was all for the cause.
Just like the Girl Scout cookies and just like the chocolate bars in Catholic schools, you know, we're doing this for the good of children.
Morgieri set up a GoFundMe page and still plans on donating to the charity.
We're not going to leave anybody hanging or on the hook for anything. We're going to come up with some of the money, or most of the money.
Morgieri will appear in court on January 25th. He's going to fight the fine, and after his day in court, he plans on donating the money to Cookies for Kids Cancer. In Dyker Heights, Brooklyn, Tim Harfman, Currents News. Michelle, back to you.
President Trump is bringing the Vatican into his fight with congressional Democrats over the border wall with Mexico. Trump pointed out yesterday there's a wall separating the Holy See from the outside world. Melissa Butts has more reporting from in front of that wall.
During President Trump's first cabinet meeting of 2019 on Wednesday, he demanded further funds to build the wall separating Mexico from the United States. He also spoke about the wall behind me, which separates Italy from the Holy See, saying,
"You got to do something about the Vatican, because the Vatican has the biggest wall of them all."
It is true, the 110-acre sovereign state is surrounded by a 39-foot-tall wall, originally built by Pope Leo IV in the 9th century to keep out Saracen Muslim raiders. Then it remained, as other outsiders threatened to take some of the precious art and treasures contained within the walls over the centuries. Yet there are some areas allowing outsiders to enter into the smallest country on earth. Both St. Peter's Basilica and the Vatican museums are available for pilgrims to enter, only blocked by metal detectors. Parts of St. Peter's Square, those belonging to the Vatican, are freely accessible for anyone to enter. They are only blocked off by a short metal railing, separating Vatican property from Italian property. In order to enter the established Vatican walls blocked off and guarded by the Swiss guards, visitors must show a form of identification. They also must explain the purpose of their visit, many times needing an official letter from the Vatican allowing access. At the same time, it's also no secret that Pope Francis has criticized the construction of walls.
Una persona che pensa soltanto in fare muri sia dove sia e non fare ponti non è cristiano. Questo non è nel Vangelo.
Yet President Trump is demanding the $5 billion he says he needs to build a wall at the Mexican-U.S. border, continuing the government shutdown the United States is currently facing. However, as for the Vatican walls, with their rich historical significance and being an ancient symbol of papal power, it does not seem as though they'll be torn down anytime soon. At the Vatican, Melissa Butts, Currents News. Back to you in New York, Michelle.
The new U.S. Congress taking office today is overwhelmingly Christian. Pew Research finds 88% of the members are of the Christian faith. That breaks down to 55% Protestant and 30% Catholic. Also, the first 2 Muslim women ever as serving in the House. With the new Congress, the balance of power in Washington is shifting. But some of the same problems plague this new class as the government shutdown continues. Natasha Chen has the latest from Washington.
The 116th Congress is in session, and its members are already breaking barriers. This freshman class is the most racially diverse in the history of Congress, and there are more women serving than ever before. Nancy Pelosi now holds the 3rd highest position in government.
Let me be clear, House Democrats are down with NDP. Nancy D'Alessandro Pelosi.
Elected as the 63rd Speaker of the House. She's the first person in more than 6 decades to return to the speakership since Sam Rayburn in 1955.
I'm particularly proud to be the woman Speaker of the House of this Congress, which marks the 100th year of women having the right to vote.
The powerful position doesn't come without its challenges. Washington is now faced with divided government, with Republicans ruling the Senate and Democrats taking control of the House.
We're now entering a period of divided government, but that is no excuse for gridlock or inaction.
Pelosi plans to go toe-to-toe with President Trump in the middle of a partial government shutdown spanning almost 2 weeks. The battle is over funding for a wall at the southern border. Democrats are expected to vote tonight on proposals to reopen the government, but the president doesn't support those measures because they don't include $5 billion for a border wall. And Senate Republicans say they won't vote on anything until it gets the president's seal of approval. In Washington, Natasha Chen, Currents News.
North Korea's main diplomat for the Vatican and Italy has mysteriously disappeared. Jo Sung-jil is the 3rd man from the left holding an award in this photograph released by the parish of Fara del Solio. According to a South Korean lawmaker, Jo and his wife have gone into hiding, raising the possibility of a rare defection of a senior North Korean official. The Vatican hasn't said anything about the case. The Irish government is fast-tracking new legislation to make amends to women forced to work in so-called Magdalene laundries, a situation spotlighted by Pope Francis when he visited Ireland in August. The women, many now in their 70s, staged long-running protests to win disputed compensation for their time. The faculties were run by the Mercy Sisters. Women were sent there, often because they became pregnant outside of marriage. Tonight, history is being made in outer space. China is the first nation ever to send a craft to the dark side of the moon. The country's lunar rover has successfully touched down on the far side of the moon. The Chinese state media announced Thursday that the rover transmitted back the world's first close-range image of the hemisphere that never faces the Earth. The mission is to conduct numerous experiments, including attempts to find water and see if certain plants can grow in low gravity. There's a lot more news headed your way. After a horrible crime, a Queens church is hearing music again, thanks to the giving heart of a generous donor. Find out which blood pressure drug is being pulled off shelves over concerns about cancer. And the story of a man of faith who started off the new year by reliving his favorite day, 54 years later. Music has once again returned to a Queens church just in time for the new year. It's an update to a story we reported last month. Instruments were stolen from St. Gerard Majella in Hollis. It was all caught on camera, but now an act of kindness is making the news. Current News' Emily Druby has the exclusive.
Once again, this sound of guitar music fills the air at Shrine Church of St. Gerard Majella in Queens because of a generous donation.
I was so astounded that someone would do that.
In October, a thief stole $4,000 worth of guitars from the church. During the incident shown in this surveillance video, the suspect disrespected the sanctuary, attempted to get into the pour box, entered the sacristy where he grabbed 2 guitars.
The police have him on camera putting the guitars onto his bike and biking away.
A generous benefactor heard what happened and donated these 2 guitars.
Oh, it's a very joyful thing, especially around this time of year, to know that there are really good people out there that only want to help the church and only want to bring the gift of music to parishioners.
The church's music director, Ann Smith-Thompson, says after hearing their story, a New Jersey donor who wants to remain anonymous remembered a promise she made to her since-deceased grandmother.
These guitars belonged to this woman's grandmother, who had been a church musician. And her grandmother had made her promise that she would donate them to a church.
The donation has struck a heartwarming chord with those involved, but they are still searching for the stolen instruments.
It's not just a guitar. You know, it was something very special to us.
Smith-Thompson explains one of the stolen guitars pictured here was given to her by her father, who has since passed. The family heirloom has also become synonymous with the church's music. But Smith-Thompson says this generous donation will allow for the show to go on.
It touched me so deeply that someone would give a family heirloom like that to replace our own family heirloom.
NYPD are asking for the public's help in identifying the suspect. Call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-577-TIPS, or you can text your tips to crimes and then enter TIP 577. In Hollis, Emily Druby, Currents News.
Time to check your medicine cabinets. Another blood pressure drug has been pulled off the shelves. Drug maker Aurobindo is recalling 80 lots of Valsartan because it may contain small amounts of a chemical linked to cancer. The FDA is telling patients to contact their doctors first before dumping the medication, as that could lead to greater risk. The Vatican's Office on Catholic Doctrine says the removal of the uterus, a hysterectomy, is permissible in extreme cases where there are dangerous health risks. While Vatican teaching prevents direct sterilization, it has approved some procedures when there are complications. A Vatican statement out today says, quote, "Removing the reproductive organ incapable of bringing a pregnancy to term should not therefore be qualified as direct sterilization." Dementia robs thousands of people across the United States of their most precious memories every year. A man in Wisconsin has been living with the diagnosis for years, but the one thing the faithful spouse hasn't forgotten is how much he loves his wife. Chaz Jama Hall has that story.
It's been 54 years since Frank and Sue Borg first tied the knot. Frank's younger brother John says he remembers like it was yesterday.
I was 16 and they were 19 and they were getting married, and it was my big brother, you know, my hero, how in love he was with Sue. He was a relentless pursuer.
And on the second day of a new year, they did it all over again.
I love you.
Frank, who's living with dementia, is in hospice at Azura Memory Care in Eau Claire. His one wish for the new year, to relive what he says was the best day of his life.
That's how Frank is. It's always been wonderful.
Well, it's easy to be wonderful when you are.
Oh, that's sweet.
Thanks to a special program, the Borgs are celebrating their love with family and friends.
So we developed a program along with Second Wind Dreams called Mosaic Dreams. And it's basically finding out what would their best day be, what would their dream be.
Not a day goes by without a visit from Sue.
After 54 years of marriage, a man who looks at his wife with so much love and tenderness in his eyes is amazing.
Frank's health has been tough on the whole family, so this ceremony was special to everyone.
When you combine what's going on for Frank health-wise and as he is failing and at a rapid pace.
He has dementia, and so a lot of times people forget. He has not forgotten one moment of love that he has felt for her.
The couple says it's love that keeps them going through this difficult time.
Just being able to see him every day. I think I have a strong faith, but Frank's is much stronger than mine.
We're going to shape you up.
The wedding was a surprise for Sue. She only found out about it a few days ago. Still to come on Current News, deadly floods in the Philippines. Catholic charities are acting fast. How one man's faith helped him see beauty in the rubble of California's deadly wildfires. We'll be right back. Catholic aid agencies are springing into action tonight after a deadly natural disaster struck the Philippines. A tropical storm slammed into the eastern regions of the country over the weekend. At least 68 people are dead, and the toll is expected to rise further. Caritas is collecting food, clothes, and blankets to distribute to thousands of people affected by the storm. The most destructive wildfire in California state history left thousands without a home. But in one instance, a local artist decided to use his faith to make beauty out of the rubble. Nazi Javid has that report.
What scripture did you want on the wall?
It's Isaiah 61:3 and 4, and it basically talks about how God can bring beauty from ashes.
Shane Edwards lived on Clark Road in Paradise.
So you can see their house is just completely gone.
Losing everything in the campfire. But through it all says he still has faith because friends like Shane Grammer show how friendship transcends tragedy.
Awesome friends that I've had for years instantly lost their home.
More than 19,000 structures were destroyed by the campfire.
There's just burnt cars everywhere, burnt down buildings. It's super emotionally heavy.
That's Shane Grammer, a friend of Shane Edwards for several years. And when Grammer saw the devastating photos Edward posted on Facebook of his home, he decided to do this.
I'm like, dude, can I please rock out your chimney and just paint something beautiful?
The chimney, the only thing left standing after the fire.
And I was like, oh my God, I gotta paint that.
The artist driving up from Los Angeles on a mission of faith.
Our prayers obviously have been pouring out for our friends and just asking God to bless them and their families through everything that's happened.
The bottom right corner of the fireplace has a Bible scripture on it, and the mural is of a beautiful woman, symbolizing that there's still beauty among the ashes.
And using my art to bring beauty where there's destruction and hope. It's all about hope.
While he's not yet sure if he wants to rebuild, Edwards says he will continue to hold on to his faith and admire the beauty among the ashes. That is Current News. I'm Michelle Powers. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.